Hello, this is my first update, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about my cancer story, why I'm sharing, and what I'll hope you'll gain out of it. Now, if you're facing a cancer diagnosis and you're feeling overwhelmed by conventional options, then hopefully my story might offer you that little bit of insight and hope that there's an alternative, there's another way. For me, being handed a life-altering surgery as the only option, it can feel a little bit like losing control of your future. And had I been on my own in this, I may well have agreed to that. So I want to share with you how I went from, I've got to be honest, I can't say it was a shocking cancer diagnosis, because for many years it was always a strong possibility and I was made aware of that. But it still never really prepares you for the day that you're told, yes, you have cancer. And the research that I've done into the alternatives that could preserve my quality of life are things that many people may not consider. So I want to walk you through my journey so that you can find a little bit of clarity, maybe a few options, and perhaps you too can join our supportive community. When you're being offered conventional treatment, you kind of feel like, and certainly the way that the doctors tell you about those options, it's like they're the only options that are available to you. And from the perspective of the NHS, that would be true. But more and more people are seeking alternatives, not just because they don't like the idea of chemotherapy, radiotherapy, major surgeries, immunotherapy less so, but it still can have some pretty nasty side effects. The alternatives that are out there being far less toxic and far more natural in their nature could be something that a lot of people might find very attractive. And it also actually gives you back a level of control. Now, even if you do decide to take the conventional standard of care therapies, there is a lot to be said for complementing that treatment with metabolic therapy, because it does actually improve a lot of outcomes for many standard of care practices. And this is where most of the testing, in fact, all of the supplements, off-label drugs, the redo drugs, the project that looks at drugs as oncological alternatives, most of the testing is done in conjunction with standard of care. And so there's a lot of evidence already out there to suggest that metabolic therapy as an adjunctive, so as a complementary therapy, is very, very helpful. So for me, the research, when I started looking into metabolic therapy as an alternative, it made an awful lot of sense. So the way that you approach treating cancer as a metabolic disease and essentially starving it out was just something that spoke to me as being, I wouldn't say obvious, because I would never have thought of it, but it is something that I feel like more and more medical practitioners are looking at the evidence and saying, Yes, I agree with all the principles, even though I can't agree with metabolic therapy as a standalone alternative. They are starting to agree more with the underlying principles because the science is undeniable. And when you start looking at the science that the likes of Professor Seafried have done, it's really hard to get away from the fact that the underlying story about cancer can't be the whole truth. I mean, how could you have an industry that's had 50 years of investment of hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars over the decades, and we still don't have an answer for cancer? There's no one thing that you can point to that says this is going to work every time for any person. And yet, starving out cancer, changing your diet, changing your lifestyle, using glutamine inhibitors, antagonists, to reduce the amount of fuel that cancer has to sustain itself, to reproduce and to proliferate. It just doesn't make any sense that this isn't part, there's only 4 standard of care treatments that you'll ever be offered through the NHS or insurance kind of healthcare providers. That's surgery, chemotherapy, radiotherapy or immunotherapy. And yet really there should be 5. There should be metabolic therapy, because we already know that it supports the other 4, and just that alone should mean that it's always used in combination. And this is what my research has shown me, is like, even if you choose surgery and you use metabolic therapy, you'll recover more quickly. There'll be less downsides. The same with chemotherapy, the side effects are less. With radiotherapy, your recovery is quicker. Just all these things are major contributors to just a better outcome. And so when I was learning all this, it was like, how is this just not part of mainstream care? And then when you realise that actually there's no money in it, that rules out Big Pharma doing all the testing for it, because the drugs that are recommended, they're not something that you can make money out of, because they've been around for years. They don't have licenses on them. You can't sell them for tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds per treatment per patient. You can't really charge tens of thousands of pounds for telling somebody to change their diet and lifestyle. And a lot of the supplements that are out there that have these active interactions with cancer to basically pressure it. So the press pulse protocol, the idea is that you press it consistently with reducing its fuel sources, the glucose and the glutamine, and then you press with the glucose and you pulse the glutamine, because you actually need glutamine for a normal daily healthy lifestyle. But while you're pulsing the glutamine, you can also use other therapies, the potentially HBOT, IV vitamin C, to get better results. And so that basically is creating oxidative stress on the cancer cells whilst they're being starved of their primary fuel sources. And this has a massive impact. And like I say, the science is there. It's, if you go and look it up, you'll find what I found, that it's very hard to dispute the information that's out there. Even as a non-scientist, don't have a medical background, don't have medical degrees, just when it's presented in that way, yes, cancer is very complicated. Yes, there is a lot of different systems in the body that can change outcomes for various individuals. But the underlying cause of cancer and the underlying results of the Warburg effect are the same for everybody. And once you learn this, it's just something that, for me, I can't ignore that. And so that's why I've chosen to go down the metabolic therapy route. So, if you're feeling trapped you've got limited options. You're feeling like the options that possibly are being offered to you aren't necessarily the best ones for you, then know that there could potentially be another option. Now, for me, it was the only option being offered was the removal of my entire bowel, sort of having all the anus removed, having a bag for the rest of my life. And I just thought about, is that really what I want? Obviously no, that's not what I want, but is that my only option? And looking at the various stories out there of people that have tried this with much more advanced cancers than mine, just makes me feel like that can't be the only option for me. And so when I'm being told it'll stop the ulcerative colitis, it'll stop any more cancer, but it's like it's a life-changing operation that I live with for the rest of my life, and there's no taking that back. If an amazing cure does come along, in the next few years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, then for me it changes the picture quite a bit. And so I'm prepared to take a chance. I'm prepared to take a chance that the science that has been put out there, the self-testing that other people have done, sometimes in the absence of any other choice, because a lot of these people that have tried these metabolic therapies are stage 4, they've been told, they've got a few months to live, and then they go and do the metabolic therapy, and, several months later, lo and behold, they don't have cancer anymore. And it's like, well, how can that be? How can the scientific community, the medical doctors, the oncologists, the drug companies, with all this knowledge and all these facilities at their disposal, not be able to treat a cancer which they've got hundreds of billions of pounds worth of backing on, and then somebody comes along and says, oh, change your diet, restrict your glucose, pulse your glutamine, try these few little off labels, and hey ho, there you go, no evidence of disease. It doesn't make any sense. So I choose to believe that I too can have that same result. So if you have any questions, you want to talk to either myself or other people, maybe if you don't have colorectal cancer, maybe you've got a different form of cancer, in our Cancer Warriors group on Skool.com, that's SKOL.com. I'll put the links below in the description. You can join the group for free. You can discuss the type of cancer you've got. You can ask what other people are doing, what results they've had, and all the various things. And if you want to know more about the research that I've done and what I've learned about metabolic therapy, then I built the website metabolictherapy.com. So all of the information that's on there was the information that's come about as from my research. It's not my company, it's not my website. I'm actually helping out the guy who set all that up, called Bernardo. But the research it's still valuable, it's still there for everybody to learn from, and we are putting up information quite regularly. We've started off with all of the supplements. There's lots of research about each one on there, and you can go and look all that up, and it's all completely free, and we hope to keep it that way for a long time to come. So yeah, just understand that even though I knew that cancer was a high risk possibility for me, and that I finally did get that cancer diagnosis, the moment I decided to look beyond surgery, I found that there was a whole new world out there that just never gets mentioned in the circles of medical professionals, oncologists, professionals that are treating people with cancer. And it's something that we hope to change by having this group, having the website, having a YouTube channel where we can share all this kind of stuff. And so As I do these updates, I hope to do many of them over the next probably at least 3 or 4 weeks. I hope to share some more insights. I'll tell you about the supplements that I'm taking, my diet, my journey for trying to find information through the NHS. I'll talk about some of the discussions I had with the professors, the oncologists, the nurses, and just give you some insight into what you can expect, because it's not all roses. Metabolic therapy, it sounds like a simple alternative, a dream kind of scenario that you can just step into and cure your cancer overnight. But whilst the theory is simple, the practicalities of it can be for many people very challenging. And it's not just the cost. Obviously that is a part of it and why I set up my GoFundMe campaign. But just being able to stick to the various parts of the diet, understanding how to measure various elements, getting the information that you need to measure various stats, bloods, liver, kidney function, etc. It can be challenging, and so I'll talk more about that in the various updates over the next few weeks. So if you find this information valuable, please go and join the Skool group, Cancer Warriors. Have a look through the website. Please give us as much feedback. If you've got questions, if you have doubts, please just ask. We're here to help, because this is something that when I started my journey of finding out about the various sort of aspects of metabolic therapy, the information's out there, but it's spread so thinly over so many channels and varying different experts, and it's locked away behind research papers and studies that it's very difficult to pry out what you actually need to know. And so this is something that we hope that other people don't have to go through by creating these resources. So if you find this helpful, like I say, please consider sharing my story. If you can, please donate to my GoFundMe. I would be very, very grateful for that too. But I think I'll leave that there for now until the next update, which will hopefully be very soon. Have a good day and take care. Look after yourself. Bye-bye for now.